What's up, Vetters? Patrick here with Vetted. Today we're talking about this.
And then you have Steven Spielberg, going back to him, screening E.T. in the White House. And,
Right.
and Steven Spielberg says in an interview, Reagan faced all these national security advisors in the room and said, all of you know that what is on that screen is absolutely real.
He looked around the room and he said, and there are a number of people in this room who know that everything on that screen is absolutely true. And he said it without smiling. But he said that, and everybody laughed, by the way. The whole room laughed because he presented it like a joke, but he wasn't smiling as he said it.
I forgot it was linked into the Times. It was linked to the New York Times. And they wrote this very serious article about is there a cover-up? Has the government or the military, the Air Force, the Navy been covering this up? And it was just a fascinating story, and it completely rekindled my interest in this subject matter. I never made a lot of contemporary films. I mean, most of my films do take place in the past. A couple in the future, like Disclosure did, and Minority Report. I don't know any more than any of you do. But I have a very strong, sneaky suspicion that we are not alone here on Earth right now. And I made a movie about that.
Hi, Vetters. Please hit that like button. That really helps out the videos. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button, y'all. All right, so what's today's video about? Well, I think I just found out something about the new Disclosure Day movie coming from Steven Spielberg that no one has caught and no one is talking about. So we're going to get into that, but we've got a few other comments that Steven Spielberg made recently at South by Southwest that is going on. He did a keynote, he got interviewed, and he said a lot of different things about the movie, just UFOs in general. Has he had any encounters? And again, he said something off the cuff about the Disclosure Day movie that nobody caught, and I think it plays a huge role in what we can expect from the movie, because I know a lot of people trying to guess, myself included, what's this movie about? What's going on? What's happening, right? Because the trailers seem very cryptic. And look, I've made reactions to all the trailers, so I'm going to put links down below in the descriptions if you want to check those out. And of course, people always assume as well that Steven Spielberg has some sort of inside knowledge about UFOs and what's happening. So we're going to cover that in today's video as well. But the big revelation from this video is something that I heard during this keynote that, again, no one is talking about, but we'll get to that in a moment. Let's just take it one step at a time here. So the first clip I'm going to show you is something Steven Spielberg also said during this keynote that people were kind of talking about last week, which I found to be absolutely fascinating. Let me play it and then we'll chat about it.
I don't know any more than any of you do. But I have a very strong, sneaky suspicion that we are not alone here on Earth right now. And I made a movie about that.
So Steven Spielberg absolutely believes we are not alone on this planet. That's crazy, right? That he seems pretty convinced that is what's going on, right? And like he said, he made a movie about it, right? So that gives us some more clues about what exactly this movie is about, right? Clearly, we're not alone. So the idea that some people were speculating that maybe they were future humans in this movie, right? It wasn't about aliens at all, but I don't think that's the case, right? Now, what type of aliens? I don't know. And when you say, Patrick, what do you mean, what type of aliens? Well, we all know. If you're into this topic, right? We got crypto-terrestrials, ultra-terrestrials, right? Extraterrestrials, interdimensional beings, right? I mean, all of that. So clearly not future humans, but there is a clue there that I just left, but we'll get to that in a moment. Now, he also says like, hey, I don't know any more than you do, right? Well, again, people have speculated for a long time that Steven Spielberg is, in the know, and he actually has, inside knowledge about UFOs and aliens, and that this movie is going to bring Disclosure Day in and of itself, right? But, people go, this is crazy. I mean, I kind of agree. I don't think that's the case. It is fun to speculate. But, there is an interesting story about President Reagan when he showed E.T. that I did find interesting. And here's Jesse Michaels on Area 52 podcast with Chris Ramsey to explain.
And then you have Steven Spielberg, going back to him, screening E.T. in the White House. And,
Right.
and Steven Spielberg says in an interview, Reagan faced all these national security advisors in the room and said, all of you know that what is on that screen is absolutely real. Or some of you in this room know that.
Yeah.
And he just stood up and he looked around the room, almost like he was doing a head count. And he said, I want to thank you for bringing E.T. to the White House. We really enjoyed your movie. And then he looked around the room and he said, and there are a number of people in this room who know that everything on that screen is absolutely true. And he said it without smiling. But he said that, and everybody laughed. By the way, the whole room laughed because he presented it like a joke, but he wasn't smiling as he said it.
So look, that is a crazy story, right? Which is funny that Spielberg doesn't really bring that up anymore. I mean, I guess it's just been a long time. But I don't know. What do y'all think? Let me know down in the comments. Do you think that Spielberg has some sort of inside knowledge? And look, we'll get to more about that particular point if Disclosure Day is going to bring disclosure at the end of the video, because I have a longer clip of Chris and Jesse talking about that that I want to share at the end of the video. So stay with us. All right, now let's get to another clip here.
Now, here's the thing that I just want to say right now. I've made Close Encounters, I've made E.T. I'm about to see Disclosure Day very soon, June 12th, it comes out. I'm really into this. Why haven't I seen anything? My friends have seen UFOs now called UAPs. I made a movie called Close Encounters of the Third Kind. I haven't even had a close encounter of the first or second kind. Where's the justice of that?
So that's kind of interesting, right? He's saying he's never seen a UFO before, right? And you figured he would have by now. So I don't know. It kind of picks away at the idea that he has some sort of inside knowledge. Now, having knowledge of something and having seen a UFO, they are two different things. And it makes his comments all the more interesting that he thinks we're not on this planet when he has never even seen a UFO, right? Or anything, right? He's never had a close encounter of any kind. And the close encounter scale, first, second, third, right? All of that, fourth, fifth, that also includes aliens. So he's clearly also saying in this that he's never had an alien or UFO encounter. I don't know. Then how can you be so certain we're not alone here? So basically he's basing everything off of what other people have said, documents, hearings, New York Times articles, which he brings up later, other things, right? So I don't know. That's interesting, but I don't know. You would think if he had some sort of inside knowledge, he would have seen a UFO. Now, I guess, could he be lying about that? I mean, that's that. Now we're accusing Steven Spielberg of lying. I don't think that's fair to him. He seems like a very honest guy, and he's one of my favorite filmmakers ever, period. I mean, let's be real. Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, Saving Private Ryan, Jaws, the perfect movie. Jaws is the perfect movie. Aside from Close Encounters and, this new movie coming. I mean, Ready Player One. He's just made Minority Report. I mean, he's just made incredible films. West Side Story, which was awesome. Anyway, I could go down the line. But regardless, Indiana Jones. Okay, look, I can keep going. But regardless, I don't know. What do y'all think down in the comments? Do you believe him? Because it kind of, if you believe him, I don't see. If you believe he hasn't had a close encounter, then I don't know, just kind of, again, picks away at the idea that he has some sort of inside knowledge. Now, let's get to the crux of this video. All right. Now, this is the thing that I caught that no one caught, not even in the room there. I haven't seen it online. No one's talking about this. I was listening to the keynote and was like, wait, did he just say that? I had to rewind and listen again. I actually put a clip of it in the very beginning, and you may not have caught it yourself. The giveaway here. Again, a revelation about the Disclosure Day synopsis, what the movie's about, that I think can really help us understand what exactly is happening in the movie, right? So I'm going to play the clip. Let me know if you hear it. And don't worry, we're going to discuss it.
You don't seem to be afraid of the idea of aliens. You don't seem to be concerned. Are there things that you are afraid of? What are you afraid of?
I'm not afraid of any aliens, there or here. I have no fears about that whatsoever. I think our movie does, take into consideration, without giving too much away, the social dislocation that could occur, theologically, if it would be announced that there's evidence, not only evidence, there's interaction that has been going on for decades that we are not just now finding out about. It's going to cause a disruption in a lot of belief systems, but I don't think it is a lethal disruption at all.
I've been thinking about your films and their relationship to technology, and a lot of contemporary filmmakers, celebrated filmmakers, have been spending a lot of time making period pieces in the last 15 years. And the reason they cite that frequently is smartphones. That there's something essentially uncinematic about someone looking at their phone. And you've been making some period pieces recently, but Disclosure Day seems to be contemporary. Just kind of curious if you've heard about that.
I haven't made a lot of contemporary films. Most of my films do take place in the past. A couple in the future, like Disclosure Day and Minority Report. But,
all right, so that's interesting. All right, so he's being asked about, hey, you don't make a lot of contemporary films, and the guy brings up, about cell phones. Cell phones don't look very cinematic, so people don't use them. And he's like, well, you're right. I've made a lot of films about the past, and that's true. I haven't made very many contemporary films. But then he also says, but I've made films about the future. And he names Minority Report and Disclosure Day. So he just revealed that Disclosure Day is set in the future. Maybe not the whole movie, but part of it is set in the future, right? That has not been talked about. I promise you, I've been following all of this, all the theories, that has not been talked about. In fact, people have been saying that this took place in the past, right? That this movie took place in the past. And let me give you a couple examples of why people have said that. And the first one is this flip phone that's in the trailers, right? So people are like, oh, this flip phone. Okay, this must be set, I don't know, back when flip phones were 2000s, I guess early 2010s, maybe even the 90s, but, definitely not contemporary. People aren't walking around with flip phones like that, right? So people are thinking, oh, this might be set in the past. And there was another clue to help people understand this might be set back in the early 2000s or late 2000s, right? But mainly early 2000s, essentially, because of this next clue, which is this right here from the trailer.
People have a right to know the truth. It belongs to 7 billion people.
So he says 7 billion people on Earth. And people are like, oh, well, we don't have 7 billion people on Earth right now. We got 8 billion, right? More, I guess. But when did we hit 7 billion? Well, that was a while ago. And according to the United Nations, the world population reached 7 billion on October 31st, 2011. This day is officially recognized as the Day of 7 billion. So there you go, right? So people were putting that with the flip phone and go, oh, this is set in the past, or at least part of it is set in the past. Now, that may be true to some extent. There may be some scenes set in the past, but they were thinking the whole movie is, right? Or a big portion of it. But as Steven Spielberg just explained, this is a future movie, right? Set in the future. I mean, he named Minority Report, which is clearly in the future, and Disclosure Day. So every movie has a base timeline and then they may jump around with it. So that may happen, but the actual movie, the base timeline of this movie is set in the future. And Steven Spielberg just said that. He may not was supposed to say that. I don't know. But I think that's a huge clue to what's going on. So now we have to wonder, well, 7 billion, or do we lose some people? Right? Or when that guy says 7 billion people, he's saying that the other billion are not really human, right? They're either hybrids or aliens living on Earth this entire time that look just like us. I'm just saying, that's what I think, right? So it's set in the future. He's saying he wants to let 7 billion people know because the other billion people already know, right? So not only, I mean, that's what I think. Let me know if that theory, what you think of that, which is interesting, right? And some other clues in the trailer that this might be set in the future, and we just kind of didn't know what we were seeing. Futuristic tech, but it's a movie, so they can add futuristic tech in a contemporary movie, right? In a modern movie, because you just play with things, right? But that may explain some of these things we've seen in the trailer that were right in front of our faces the entire time. Like this picture here of Colin Firth, the actor. I mean, look at this scene. This kind of looks very futuristic, right? Looks a little more advanced than what we have today, right? And then you got this thing that he's wearing on his head. You know what I mean? I'm just saying, right? He's clearly doing something with it. And then in the latest trailer, they showed this clip.
Hello, Jane. Please, have a seat.
Which is a great clip, right? And so many people, and myself included, when I was doing the trailer reaction, it was like, oh, it's some sort of remote viewing, could put yourself like astral projection sort of thing, some sort of remote astral projection. But now, honestly, hearing Steven Spielberg say this is set in the future, it makes me think that Colin Firth is going back to the past. That's what's happening. He's going back to the past to talk to people like this. And that's what that technology is. That's what I think. I think it's to time travel, essentially, to go back in the past and talk to different people, right? So it seems like the Colin Firth scenes that you see, that's in the future, what would be the present of that movie. And they're kind of playing with time a little bit. I don't know any of this, right? This is all theories. This is just what I'm picking up, what they're laying down, So let me know what you think in the comments of these theories. I'd be curious to hear what other people are thinking. But again, from Steven Spielberg's own mouth, he confirmed that Disclosure Day is set in the future. Now, another clip that I found interesting from this keynote was when Steven Spielberg said this.
My feeling is that what reinvigorated me in wanting to make the first UFO movie I made in 50 years, but it will be almost 50 years since Close Encounters was released in 1977, was when the New York Times came out in 2017. And it was an article written by Helene Cooper and Rosenthal and I believe Leslie Keane. And it was an article about the Navy pilot who was flying a Navy FA-18F fighter jet off the Nimitz, the aircraft there, Nimitz, and had seen something on his FLIR and had essentially recorded it and basically reported it. And the New York Times, and I believe it might have been, I forgot who linked it to the Times, but it was linked to the New York Times, and they wrote this very serious article about it is there a cover-up, as the government or the military, Air Force, the Navy is covering this up. And it was just a fascinating story, and it completely rekindled my interest in this subject matter.
So 2 things here. One, this New York Times article that came out in 2017, he's most excited about that, right? When that came out, he's like, that got him going, like a lot of people, right? got him back into the subject. But something interesting that he says is he calls this his first UFO movie in 50 years. Now, he's made E.T. and War of the Worlds and doesn't consider those UFO movies. I guess he considers those alien movies. So that's interesting because there's also aliens in Close Encounters, but I don't know. I just found that to be an interesting caveat. And that's how he looks at it, right? That it's a UFO movie, right? So that's very interesting. There is a UFO in the trailer. They show it right here, right? You can see at the very end of the trailer, they show this UFO, which looks amazing, right? Don't really see what's going on, but you kind of see what's going on. And there's also a shot of Roswell in the trailer that just got released like quickly. And people are saying that's kind of set up like a hoax or something. I don't know, but I don't know. I just found that an interesting thing for him to say that this is his first UFO movie in 50 years when he's made E.T. and War of the Worlds, right? So it had UFOs. I mean, it had aliens, and UFOs. I don't know. Just very interesting. I don't know. Very, very interesting. Now, again, the whole theory behind does Steven Spielberg have inside knowledge about UFOs and aliens that no one else has, and has been slowly peppering things in movies for us to get us used to it. And especially with a film called Disclosure Day, which he readily admits is about UFOs and, again, set in the future. He brings up the dislocation of society, which I love that phrase that he used when he said that. Very, very cool. That's what this movie's about. What would happen to society? What kind of disruption would it mean for society? Specifically, he says theologically, which is also interesting. But regardless, does he have inside knowledge? And people are saying that he's using this movie, Disclosure Day, to reveal to the world actual disclosure. Now, I get it. I don't believe that. And at first, when you hear that, you may just laugh like, come on, it's just a movie. And I agree. I think it's just a Hollywood movie. I don't think any of that's happening. But, hey, we're here to speculate as well, right? And have some fun with that. So what if that were the case? What if Steven Spielberg was using Disclosure Day to disclose actual aliens on Earth to the world, right? Chris Ramsey and Jesse Michaels recently talked about that in an interview, and I found this part of the conversation quite interesting.
For me, I look back at this Spielberg thing, and I can't shake it. And I know it's my pet theory, and it's a little absurd, but also
I don't think it's absurd. I think it's
Spielberg has a history of being really close to some UFO truths.
Yeah,
let's say, and for all of that to be culminating at the same time, for the people in Congress who once the second they established this new sort of UAPTF, they're tweeting out the new title of Spielberg's movie with like cryptic tweets of like, oh, just wait, you're not ready for this. And I'm like, ready for what? The fucking Spielberg movie? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
And then immediately this huge flap that goes worldwide, happens in Jersey with all these drones, and who knows what was going on there. But immediately after, they start filming in Jersey.
Yep.
And I can't help but think somehow that's related to like moving something, and that something's going to be in the movie.
Yeah.
And that'll be Trump's pedestal that they're propping him up for. And they're like, here's an alley-oop. We got this, and you're going to come out, and Spielberg's going to be here, and people are going to have shoving their faces full of popcorn, and it's going to be the American. We're going to have stealth bombers fly overhead, and maybe unveil the TR-3B at the same time, and be like, "We got them! Aliens are here!" I don't know. That's my America, but I'm Canadian, so
that might be right. I don't think the Spielberg camp would be coordinating with Trump, though, would be my guess.
No, unknowingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trump would probably be briefed in the last few days, and then would probably go out on Truth Social and like spill the beans prior. That's right. More of his style. But yeah, the team working behind it all, it's in the grand scheme of things. If that happened, I wouldn't be mad if that's how we got disclosure, quote unquote, was. Yeah. This film features a real UFO, I'd be like, hats off. you're forgiven. You're forgiven. The trillions of dollars, forget about it. You guys just did the best, coolest thing ever.
So, would they use a real UFO in the movie? I don't know. But this was an interesting thread that they were pulling. And I get it. You're talking, you're spitballing, it's campfire stuff. I get it. But it would also take away from Steven Spielberg saying he's never had a close encounter. He's never seen a UFO. So, again, just him lying about that. I guess you would if you're holding if that's in your movie, you're not going to tell the truth about that. And he kind of makes it a point to bring that up in the keynote. So people could argue, why even bring that up? You didn't even get asked about it, right? I don't know. I think he probably just always thinks about that, how funny it is that he covers this stuff, loves it, thinks we're not even alone on Earth, and still has never had an encounter that he would deem, incredible or extraterrestrial. And honestly, I can say the same thing. Haven't had that amazing encounter. I've had encounters I can't explain, which will be revealed in my new documentary coming out this summer, Psionics. But something so extraordinary that it's alien. It is funny. I cover this all the time, and why haven't I seen a mantis or a gray or been abducted or been aboard a UFO or all these all these stories that people talk about. So maybe that's why he's bringing it up. But regardless, let me know what you think down in the comments, and very curious to read the comments on this one, y'all. Again, I got links down below to the trailers that I've reacted to and the sources that I used in today's video. All right, betters, we'll see you in the next one. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
I'd just like to share an experience that we had back in 2001 outside of Flagstaff, Arizona, on Forest Service Road 321, about 20 miles south. There was 3 of us driving about 11:30 at night. And we came across something suspended off the ground about the size of an RV with disco-looking lights on it. Coming from northern Arizona, we were very familiar with the Travis Walton story. So when my buddy grabbed a handgun to get out to take a look at it, I grabbed him by the collar and punched the gas, and we took off. We waited above Sedona, Arizona, right on the rim above Secret Canyon Wilderness, for about 2 hours before we headed back to town. On the way back, we stopped at the site where we saw the UFO. It was completely empty, completely dark. So we got out to take a look. Right where that thing was at, all the pine trees about 9 inches in diameter were just snapped at the base, almost in a circular pattern lying on the ground. That was always a life-defining moment for me. I hadn't thought about it in years until 2017 when the Wall Street Journal reports came out. But what really kind of freaked me out a little bit is when Russ Coulthart started talking about what's going on at Secret Mountain Wilderness. It all seems to be connected. I used to work for the Forest Service, and we had a guy disappear in that area. He was a Forest Service ranger, and to this day, he hasn't been found. There's something definitely going on in that area. I remember growing up in the 80s and 90s and hearing stories from hunters in the area that there were people out there playing soldier, and they were very aggressive and violent. So that's my story. I appreciate it. Thanks. Bye.